Kate, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where are you calling in from today?
North Palm Beach. I'm like West Palm Beach, North Palm Beach, South Florida.
South Florida, not too far away. We could have done this in person, but it's easier to do it over Zoom.
I
Glad you're
know, but more
here.
fun to do it in person.
I agree. Well, we had dinner together last night, which was great. Just cliff note for anybody watching this. Kate and I worked together for years and have known her for probably over a decade, I guess, at this point, or close to a decade. I'm not, yeah,
Oh,
over a decade. Yeah,
yeah, over.
crazy, crazy. Um, and you guys have probably heard stories about Kate when you hear conversations about salespeople. I'll fill you on that later, Kate. But you're here to talk about a dynamic culture. And so this is what you do all the time. And obviously, we'll explain your bio in the article. But I want to start with this question of what are the best leaders that you're observing and working with doing to build a great culture?
The best leaders, and I feel so blessed being in the role and the work that we get to do because we work with incredible leaders. And what I'm recognizing is they care about their people. Like it is as simple as that. They care about their people and they are actively looking for opportunities and programs and development opportunities for their team to help them grow.
Amazing. And when they're doing that, I mean, give me some examples of that if you don't mind. Walk us through some examples from all types of people. Some people employ, very blue collar people. Some people employ technical people that are very in demand right now. And then we all, if we're growing our business, should be developing future leaders. So just give us a couple examples of what you're seeing these leaders do.
Yeah, so well, one of the things that we do is, and is we certify dream managers. So Dream Manager, it is a program, we really call it the number one employee retention and attraction tool. It is an incredible program to help your people become the best version of themselves. It was developed by Matthew Kelly, who wrote the book The Dream Manager back in 2007, and these leaders, they read the book and it really resonates with them because they know that their organization can only be the best version of itself to the extent that their people are becoming better versions of themselves. And so they implement a program like the Dream Manager to help their people not become better managers or leaders or any of that, but that comes along with it, but really to help them re-engage with their dreams. So most organizations are dealing with an engagement problem. 70% of the workforce is disengaged, and obviously engagement is on a spectrum, right? Some people are highly, highly engaged, and others are very disengaged, and there's kind of everyone in between. And great leaders are trying to engage their people, but they can't just be engaged at work. They have to first be engaged in their personal life. Like that's the biggest challenge is I think so many people think, "Oh, we have this professional side and this personal side, but we are one person in the same. We don't completely transform into a different individual when we go into the office. We bring who we are." And so if we have lost sight of our dreams and we're not excited about our own lives and we're going home and hanging out and watching TV and we're not working towards anything, how can we expect that those same people are going to come in and they're going to be excited to fulfill a mission of the organization and work with a team and have great communication? It doesn't work. So a program like the Dream Manager is really for those leaders to help empower their team to achieve their personal dreams. So they're going to show up at work really differently. So obviously there's tons of different programs, right? Like Dream Manager is one of them. Of course, I would talk about it. That's what we do is certified dream managers. But what's really cool is that the leaders that we're seeing that are doing this really well, because they're discovering the dreams of their people, they're also then able to identify, oh, a lot of our team has a dream of becoming financially free. Let's bring in some financial planners or some other programs that are going to help them get better with their finances. A lot of dreamers want to lose weight and be more fit. So some people have brought in different, whether it's a personal nutritionist or a personal trainer or something to help them with those types of dreams. So they're able to say, oh, I'm not just out here looking for different development opportunities for my people that I hope they will enjoy. These are opportunities they know they'll enjoy because they are helping them fulfill those dreams that they've now discovered.
That's great. And you mentioned engagement and that 70% of employees are not engaged. And I've heard a lot about this, and the way that it struck me is that most of us are paying our people for a chunk of time, whether that's for an hour, if they're an hourly wage, or if it's for a week, if they're salary. And, maybe we give them commissions and bonuses, but unless we're truly paying somebody like per widget, like for every widget you develop, I'll pay you X. Engagement is honestly, the capitalist in me, it sounds selfish, but that's how you get the most bang for your buck. So if I'm paying somebody, $50 an hour or $500 an hour, and I'm not paying them per widget, the more engaged they are, the more output we're going to get from the business and less problems we're going to have. And when I heard somebody say it that way, it made a lot of sense to me. Why, listen, we all want engagement because we want to have fun with our team and we care about them. But like the economic sense of it is you're just going to get a lot more for the money you're already paying. And so I think that's why engagement is so important. So I just wanted to share that personal anecdote that I had heard. But I want to talk about what a
Well, can
dynamic.
I share? Can I share something with that? Because
Yeah,
I love that you described it that way. It reminds me of this story, and I love sharing this story because this to me is what engagement really is. And in any capacity, in any role, right? So I was at the Atlanta airport a few years ago, and I had walked into the women's restroom, and there was this woman. She was on the janitorial team over there, and I was walking in, and Jeremy, this woman, she had a huge smile on her face. She was like, good morning," just saying good morning to everyone. And as I was leaving, I said, "Are you?" I said, "Are you always this happy?" And she goes, "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "What's your name?" She goes, "My name's Marjorie." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Marjorie, how long have you worked here?" She's like, 10 years. I said, "Do you like working here?" And she goes, "I love it. I love it." And I said, "Really? Why?" She goes, "They are so good to me. They are so good. I've been here for over 10 years." And and so anyway, I started walking out, and I came back and I said, "Hey, Marjorie," I said, "I know this is going to sound super weird, but especially because we're in a women's restroom, but can we take a selfie?" So I took a selfie with her because I was just so excited that she was so excited about her work. She's on the janitorial team. Could you not, you couldn't find something less glamorous. And here she is engaged in her work, so excited to be there. And as I was walking out, I said to her, "You're really making everyone's day." And she goes, "No, you guys make my day." And there was a woman walking out with me, and she goes, "No, yeah, you are making everyone's day." She's not getting paid to smile and laugh and be that kind to people. She's getting paid for something completely different, but she loves the work. So no matter what role that you're in, we work with a lot. I mean, the book, The Dream Manager, is about a janitorial company. So we work with, trucking company, manufacturing, like all different types of industries.
yeah,
And you can find that level of engagement no matter where you are. You can find those people. We've all experienced those people.
of course. And I think this is amazing because property management is also a thankless job sometimes. It's an important role. It's a mentally taxing role, and it's also an emotionally taxing role because you're often playing mediator between two parties that disagree.
Mm.
So, easy example is the landlord says, "I don't want them having three people in that property." And then the tenant saying, "I want to add a third person to the property." Both people are unhappy, and you're the person in the middle that has to mediate that, right? You have to say, well, this is what the lease says. Somebody's going to be unhappy at the end of the day. Likely, both people are going to be unhappy at the end of the day in some small form. And so, yeah, it's very apropos for what some of these people are going through. They're doing very important work. They're highly trained. They understand. Like I said, it's demanding. They have to understand legal issues. They have to understand people issues. They have to understand, property issues, very technical things. And so it's amazing if we can get people to be engaged. I think they're going to make less mistakes. I think they're going to create less problems. They're going to diffuse bad situations, and everyone's just going to have a lot more fun, and clients stick around a lot longer, without a doubt. So, what does that dynamic environment or that culture look like? What are the leaders doing at kind of the highest level, not like a day to day, but at the highest level? What are those leaders doing to get a Marjorie on their team?
Well, first thing is they have a really great hiring process. right? I mean, that's number one. We have to hire the right people in order for we have to hire the right people. And that can be a really big challenge. I mean, we see that among a lot of leaders. In fact, it's so interesting because I remember when I worked at a chamber of commerce and dealt with CEOs every day, even what, 15, 20 years ago, the biggest challenge was finding and retaining great talent. And today, what do leaders say? It's finding and retaining. This is nothing new, right? Like we've always had this big challenge. And so, however, what's crazy, it's a big challenge, yet ask most leaders, hey, do you have a hiring process? And they say no, or they have one, but then you ask them, do you follow it? And they say no. So we have to have a really great hiring process. And part of that hiring process is comes with expectations, right? Like, do you have what is the role description? What is the scorecard? Like, when we're hiring somebody to come in, they should know exactly what the role is and then how they're being evaluated every day. Like, there's nothing worse than you get a role and you come in and you don't even know how you're being evaluated. You don't really know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Like, what are the outcomes? And so, those things are not created oftentimes, the role descriptions, the scorecards, because they take time. They can be challenging to put together. But once you do, it makes the hiring process so much easier because then you can bring in the person that you know is right for the role. So we see that like great leaders, they are amazing at hiring. Now, everyone makes hiring mistakes, but they get really good people into the organization. They're also, they have a great mission. Everybody knows the mission. Like everyone is very on board with this is the mission of the organization. We make mission king. Like that's what we base decisions on. We don't base decisions on what does Jeremy think we should do or what's Jen's direction? What does she think we should do? No, it's we make decisions based on the mission. And that means that sometimes when we make decisions, we get to disagree and commit. Like great leaders understand, okay, we're going to disagree, but we're going to commit. This is the way we're going. And they move forward. They have really great communication. Like great leaders over communicate, right? Like they say the same thing over and over. We'll talk to some of our leaders and they get really frustrated because they'll say, "Oh, I've told this person like 10 times and they're still not doing it." And then he goes, "Well, isn't it enough? Isn't 10 times enough?" I was like, "Apparently not." Like, I mean, saying the same thing over and over. I was like, until your team members are almost mocking you or finishing your sentences, you might not have said it enough, right? Like we have to continue to talk about the mission, to talk about where we're going so that we know that everyone on in the organization knows the direction. And I think what's really cool about leadership is we get to be coaches. If you are a leader, you are a coach. And coaching is a gift. Like, I think it's so incredible. Great leaders, they truly want to see their people grow. They want to see them get better. They want to give them opportunities. And that's really the essence. Like, that is really the heart of really great leaders. Like when I think about all the CEOs and the executives that we get to work with, it is so clear that they care about their people and they want them to grow. So I think a lot of I was talking to this the other day with a friend of mine. I forget what it is about the average CEO will read what, like let's say 70 books a year or I don't know, whatever that number is. And most people are not reading 70 books in a lifetime, right? And so a lot of leaders, they just have this thirst for knowledge and learning, but their people might not. So when you get to introduce them to new ideas, to new concepts, invite them to read great books and to listen to great podcasts and to have interesting conversations, like you're really giving them such an opportunity to grow. And in their growth personally, they're gonna grow professionally, which is super exciting. And so I think that great leaders are great coaches. Great coaches hold people accountable and they are courageous enough to have uncomfortable conversations. You know, I love when I get to have okay, I don't love uncomfortable conversations. Nobody does, but what's on the other side of an uncomfortable conversation is where I want to be. Like even if it hurts, it's like, wow, I feel like we said what was hard to say, but what was needed to be said. And then we were able to to grow as an organization and to grow in relationship. And I think that builds a lot of trust. And yeah, so I think coaching is so important in any leadership role to really care and give your people those opportunities. And then it makes everything easier.
Yeah, I agree. I love everything you said there, specifically on I've been experiencing this like you have to repeat yourself. I can't tell you how many executives I've gotten to work with. Like being in a client services business, like when we had the agency and other things, I've always just been around executives and business owners, and it is amazing how many people complain about having to repeat themselves. And they're just like, I hate to repeat myself. I hate it. They just expect everybody to get it. But I will tell you the real like kingmakers, like the people that I've seen grow like giant organizations, they have all the patience in the world. They're saying less, but they're saying it more. And Vern Harnish has a great quote that like having employees is like having kids. You're gonna have to repeat yourself a lot, so you better have very few rules that you really care about. Like you can't have a million rules. You just gotta have like seven or eight that like really matter, and you just gotta repeat them. And again, I love that. It's like if they start mocking you, like I think he uses the like you're doing a good job when they start rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
If they start rolling your eyes, like you're finally getting the point across, which I love.
Yes. Actually, it's so funny because we talk over here about how everything is an iceberg. Like we'll be like, oh, we're gonna do this marketing, we're gonna do this webinar. It's gonna be super easy. We're just gonna do the webinar. And then you're like, wait, we have to create the landing page and then the copy and then the emails and it's the whole thing, right? You do these and so my team we always laugh in here because we'll say we're gonna do this. Everything's an iceberg. Everything's an iceberg.
A great term. And it proves out over and over again in business for me. Everything is an iceberg for sure.
Oh,
If
all
you
the
do it
time.
right, it is, without a doubt. All
Yeah.
right. So this is great. There's a lot of wisdom you just shared. Obviously, we can only get so much in an article. But you guys talk about the six principles to creating a dynamic culture. So kind of walk us through, high level, because we'll come back and we'll probably cover each of the principles maybe more later. So just kind of get us through high level, and paint a picture for what that dynamic, healthy culture is looking like.
Okay. So these are the six principles. Number one, make culture a priority. Before we were recording, you were telling me like not everyone even understands that culture is important, which is wild. Obviously, this is what I get to do for a living. And I just think, no, that's like the number one thing. You have to think about building a healthy culture if you're going to have a healthy organization. Does that not make sense? It makes sense to me. So make culture a priority. It has to have a seat at the table when you're talking about the business and where you want to go. Culture should be part of that conversation and what that looks like to you. What kind of culture do you want to build? And then how are you going to build that? And someone should be responsible. Everyone is responsible for culture. It's not just the CEO, but someone should be responsible for making sure that that conversation is being had and things are being done in the organization to support that culture. Number two is mission is king, which we kind of talked about already. We have to have a very strong mission and vision for the organization. Like, why? What are we coming to work every day for? What are we doing? What are we building? And we work with an executive over at it's a car dealership. They have a couple different locations, and he said, I used to walk around the office. He's like, because I know people didn't know the mission. He said, I thought everyone knew the mission. I'm like, of course you did, but where do you talk about it? When do you say it? And so he said he got really serious and he brought everyone in. They started talking about the mission more and he said, I will just walk around the floor and I will go up to someone and say, okay, what's the mission? And if they can say it, I give them $20.
Love it.
And so it was just like a fun game for them to play to make sure that everyone is, not saying it just for the $20, but just like to know that it's important for the
Yeah.
organization. And mission is it's important to have that mission, vision, and values so that people know what we're doing.
All right, you're on the spot, Kate. What's your mission there, Floyd?
Oh, we grow people.
That's
We
great.
grow people.
Look how fast that was and how easy that was. Like
Yeah.
effortless. You didn't even get stressed. You didn't even raise an eyebrow to that.
No.
It was great.
Yeah, that is what we do. And that's the other thing that is so interesting when people create missions, because we've all been part of an organization where or we've seen where the mission is like a page long and it's full of it sounds really smart. We like to sound really smart with big words, but what does that mean? Like I don't understand. So keeping it really simple.
Yeah.
Number three is, do you know your mission?
Oh yeah. We're building bigger futures through personal and professional development in the property management space.
You're good. You're
Ours are very similar, which is really unique. You say it even better. I mean, we're a little more specific, but yeah, a lot of overlap there.
yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, we value simplicity over here, as I know you do too.
Simple's always
Um,
worth it. It's one of our core values.
so principle number three is over communicate the plan. We talked about that. Just don't be afraid to repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself. This is a great example of just repetition is marketing, right? We all know sometimes you have to see something 7, 8, 9, 10 times before you actually take action. It's the same thing with people. We probably know that when it comes to our significant others, like having to repeat ourselves saying the same thing. And so we do that in the
Can I just
organization.
add to that, Kate? It's so funny about that is how much I know that's true and how much smart people reject that. Like it's like smart people are like, I'm over that. Like, but it is just human nature is human nature. So I feel like we have to be reminded that over and over again.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that part of that is it goes back to there are some people, and not just in a leadership role, there's just some people that they love learning and growing. So they're constantly learning and they have all of these things in their head and they're probably learning very similar things, right? You listen to one or two podcasts, maybe they're all about business or all about marketing, and you feel like you know everything about that topic. So it's so easy for us to just assume that everyone's thinking the same way that we're thinking. Not true. Like everyone has their own ideas, and that's another thing why it's so important when it comes to leadership. Like, do you know your people? Like, have they done a personality assessment? Have you gotten in there and really understand what motivates and drives your people? Like, what are they really interested in? Because what you're interested in is very different than your VP of sales or a rep or whatever it is, whoever on your team. And so but that's really hard when you live in that world. It's really hard to remember, oh wait, other people don't know this even exists.
I think that was great. I think that point alone is a masterclass in managing people, persuading, building organizations. So I wanted to linger on that for a second, but keep going.
All right, principle number four, hire with rigorous discipline, which we talked about, making sure you have those role description scorecards. In fact, I was working with a leader and they said, well, we're just getting really busy, I need to hire someone, we're just going to hire someone. Who are you hiring? Oh, they didn't even really know. There was no role description, no scorecard. So how are you going to hire right people? Well, we're going to hire a great person, an A player. How are you going to know they're an A player if you don't even know what role you're hiring for? So making sure that you know very clearly what is the role for, like what do you really need in the organization so that you can find the right person. I mean, that's a whole webinar on itself. Number five is let people know what you expect. I really love this one because I think everyone in an organization deserves to know where they stand, right? Like there's nothing worse than I talk about, think about how many people are going home from the office and they're sitting at the kitchen table and they're telling their spouse like, "Man, I'm just killing it at the office. Things are amazing. I'm killing it." And their leader is going home to their family and they're like, that person is killing me. Like that is like that's what I think of. Like how many people is that happening to? And it shouldn't happen. And so let people know what you expect. How are they being evaluated? We recommend quarterly performance reviews, not annual performance reviews, continuously just getting together and making sure people know like how they're doing, what's going on. And in Matthew's book, The Culture Solution, he talks about the expectation gap. So there's this gap, and it's what people expect, and then there's what actually happens, and there's this big gap in between. And as a leader, our role is to minimize that gap as much as we can, because if that gap needs to be filled with something, and it's going to cause frustration, lack of trust, and just a lot of nothing that we want to be known for, right? In that gap. So we've got to shorten that gap. And you do that by letting your people know exactly what you expect.
And
And then,
I just want to add color. I do agree. As a
yeah,
business owner, there is nothing more tense and more frustrating and more awkward than an employee thinking they're killing it and a leader thinking they're not killing it. Like that's just it's just toxic when that happens.
yeah, and that's why again, when it comes to having, we work with a lot of leaders who their managers they lack the courage to have those uncomfortable conversations. They lack the courage to hold people accountable. And nothing good comes from that. And that's when these things happen. And so I think this goes to number six, grow your people by creating a coaching culture. When you have a coaching culture, which means you're constantly growing, learning, developing your people, you're having these conversations, those uncomfortable conversations become a lot less uncomfortable because your people know it's coming from a place of coaching, not from anything else. It's coming from a place of, I want you to be your best so that we can be our best. But there has to be trust in that before those conversations take place. And so how much can you trust someone if they're not even telling you when you're not doing a great job? It's like I know in the past I've had experiences where you get an email from your boss and meet me in my office and your heart beats and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I get in trouble for?" And no, it has nothing to do with that, but we all have had those kinds of situations when we kind of like get stressed out if we don't know, we're not super clear on what's expected of us. And so number six is grow your people by creating a coaching culture, which again, the best leaders in the world, they're really great coaches. Like they coach their people and they want to see their people succeed.
That's it. That's all we got to do. Those six things.
That's it.
So easy.
Easy. Super easy. I know, simple, not easy, right?
Exactly. Thank you. You stole the words. It was like it takes an amazing amount of experience and knowledge to be able to distill it down into such a simple list. But often the best lists worth following are actually really hard to do, but they're simple to understand. They're just hard to do. Um,
I know.
but then, choose your heart is like a really common thing everybody's talking right now. It's like choose your heart. It's hard to have a dysfunctional team and it's hard to build a great culture. Like which one
Yeah.
are you going to focus on?
Oh, that's so true. That is so true.
Yes.
Well, the good news is it can be done.
Yes, it can.
And
You do it, you see it happen all the time, which is great.
yeah, we do. And again, that's what's so exciting for us is that we see these stories every day. We see the stories of the people that are helping their team members achieve their dreams. They are showing up really differently. We have stories of leaders who have they've had to go through those uncomfortable conversations. Like I've been in rooms where it's gotten really uncomfortable because people were finally sharing truths that they didn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing. But over on the other side of they were able to laugh and get through it and then became a stronger team. And that's what's really exciting is that this stuff is challenging, but man, the rewards are so cool. Like think about if you're building a business, like you you get to create that kind of environment for people. That's like really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, like the interesting thing is so many small business owners, especially in service-based companies like you and I work a lot in, they start a business because they're just good at a craft. And they don't understand that when they're going from individual superstar to team builder, that the craft actually starts to become less and less important to them personally. The craft is still important. Don't get me wrong. It's got the organization now starts to become the shepherd of the craft, and the leader has to make sure that they're scaling, cooperating, building an organization, dealing with crazy things that they never had to deal with before, like marketing, like product development, like people. And people is the last thing that an individual superstar really wants to deal with. But it's the path to growth.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, people. We always say, business would be so easy if it wasn't for all these people.
Yeah, we sit at the agency. Like advertising would be a great business if it wasn't for the clients and the employees. If we didn't have those,
Oh my
like it would be a
gosh.
great business.
People are gonna people.
People are gonna.
So
I love that.
people are gonna people.
All right. Well, let's end briefly, if you don't mind. What's the opposite of this? What's the pain? What are the symptoms? Like, what do you think somebody might be experiencing right now as a direct lack of investment in their culture? Whether it's time or money, just focus on their culture, right? Like they're breaking all the six principles. What does that look like for those people?
Ugh, well, obviously that's gonna be a pretty toxic environment. And I think you just said it best, Jeremy. You choose your heart, right? Like i- if you don't care about these six principles, you're just missing out on the value that your team can provide. You're definitely wasting a lot of money. I mean, I can't tell you how many leaders that we've worked with who I will they'll continuously come to coaching sessions and have a conversation, or we'll have a conversation around a person that they're dealing with and how challenging they are. And I'll finally just say, how long are you going to put up with this? Like, this is a challenge that not only your person isn't doing the work that they need to be doing, it's causing you frustration, headaches, and you're spending time and attention and energy on this big challenge. Why are you not letting them go? Or like, what's the next step, right? Like they keep saying that really they just need to let this person go for whatever reason. And I'm not saying that's always the reason, right? We can coach these people up. Um, but sometimes I'll ask them that question, like if this person left tomorrow, how would you feel? And they'll say, a weight would be lifted off my shoulder. That's really telling. And so what are you going to do? And so we're not taking steps towards fixing the challenge, whatever it is, coaching them up, putting them in a new role, like that. We've got to do something though to like alleviate that situation. So think about all the just the stress and energy of it all. And then how many people are wasting so much money because they're hiring the wrong person. They're bringing them in, they're hiring, they have horrible retention, turnover, and they're just spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in cost of the employee. And if you don't have a great culture, you're not going to attract the kind of people that you want to come work for you, because people that you and I get to work with that are really great and great team members that really love the work, they want to be part of this mission, they're not going to be part of that kind of culture. So it's almost like this is why number one is make culture a priority. Like even when you're starting out, think about it. Like I have some of my friends who are they were solopreneurs and they just brought on their first like one or two team members, and they're so fanatical about, I need to make sure that I'm creating this business, and it's like one person. So we have to have that in mindset, or we're not going to go anywhere. We can't grow. You can't be, we talk about a healthy versus a smart organization. You need to be both. You need to be healthy and you need to be smart. And so many times leaders will focus so much on what makes a company smart, like, their finances, marketing, strategic plan. But if they're not healthy and they don't care about culture and feeding into their people, they're not going to grow as an organization.
Agreed. Well, I'm still proud that I somehow convinced you to come work with me years ago, and it's amazing to see what you're doing all of this time after. I appreciate it. These were great shares. This is what everybody needs to be doing.
Well, thank you for having me. We have a culture assessment. I don't want to can I share the culture assessment with
Yeah,
people?
yeah, absolutely.
Because the cool thing about the assessment is it rates your culture on a scale, like you actually get like a report, and you'll get an overall culture score, like what is your culture, and then you also get a score for each of the six principles. So after you take the assessment, you'll be able to see, oh, maybe you're killing it at creating a coaching culture, but ooh, maybe communication and over communicating plan, you need a little support on. So the culture assessment, it's free and you can get it at floydconsulting.com/culture.
Great. We're going to definitely include a link to that. That's a great. Somebody reads this, they're going to want to know where they stand, which is
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
sharing
you
that.
could have your people take it. You could have your people take it and then you
Oh,
take it and then
even better.
yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Well, we're looking forward to learning more about this at the summit.
I'm so excited to be there. This is like full circle. We're always going to work together in some capacity.
I agree. Yeah, it's good to get the band back together again.
Right?
Yeah.
So good.